My boss once told me, if your work vanished tomorrow, no one would notice. I smiled, I nodded, and I walked out of his office. That night, I stared at my daughter's drawing. She'd scribbled me as a shadow behind a computer, labeled invisible. Funny thing is, he never knew the system he bragged about to investors was mine, built line by line while I skipped birthdays and good nights. He mocked my petty work. That petty work kept the entire company breathing. And the day I stopped touching it, the empire he built on my silence began to crumble. They called it a breakthrough, a revolutionary leap in predictive AI. Every tech blog was buzzing about our company's new system that could forecast market behavior with uncanny precision. Investors threw money like confetti. Gregory Shaw, our CTO, soaked in the spotlight like he'd personally cracked the algorithm of God. And me? I sat behind a dimly lit monitor, fingers deep in code no one but I understood, running maintenance cycles at 3 a.m., debugging a system I'd built 3 years ago during a manic winter of sleepless nights and instant coffee. The name they gave it, OptiCore, was shiny and forgettable. But underneath all that branding, it was still my system. They'd only changed the interface and slapped their names on it. At first, I didn't care. I was the brick no one saw, the silent foundation that didn't demand applause. I believed that doing the work right was enough, that the truth would whisper for me someday. But silence has a way of turning into erasure. Tuesday morning, I was tweaking a back-end function that had been producing data lag anomalies, just routine stuff. Then I spotted it. A foreign line of code buried deep in a loop that controlled volatility weighting. At first glance, harmless. But on deeper inspection, it subtly skewed predictions toward high-risk investments. Profitable in the short term, devastating if unchecked. My stomach tightened. I didn't write this. Someone had tampered with the core, and not just sloppily. They knew exactly where to insert changes that wouldn't trigger alerts. I didn't say a word. Not yet. Later that afternoon, I was called into the executive floor. Not for a promotion or even a performance review. No, I was there to watch a presentation by Gregory to the board. Standing behind a glass wall, I listened as he boasted about our breakthrough technology, speaking in vague metaphors about neural adaptive indexing. Concepts I'd invented and documented in internal white papers. Then came the kicker. He clicked to a slide, OptiCore Evolution, AI for aggressive growth. A fancy graph, some bullet points, and there, at the bottom corner, my entire system framework, color-coded, annotated, and stripped of my name. The same architecture I designed, now labeled as Gregory Shaw, lead architect. He glanced toward the glass, and for a split second, we locked eyes. He smirked. I walked out before the applause ended. That evening, I sat on the living room carpet with my daughter Amelia. She was coloring a picture of our family. There was her mom, and a gray blur sitting behind a desk. "Who's that?" I asked. "That's you?" she said brightly. "You work all the time. You're kind of like a ghost." I didn't laugh. I didn't cry either. I just stared at the drawing until she wandered off to build something with her Legos. My wife passed by, her hand resting on my shoulder for a beat longer than usual. In bed, I stared at the ceiling while Gregory's voice echoed in my head. "Petty work," he'd said once, chuckling with another executive. "The guy spends all day on back-end crap no one even sees. And he wants a raise? Please." I never asked again after that, but something had changed now. This wasn't just oversight. It was theft. It was betrayal wrapped in a smile, delivered from a podium. He didn't just use my system. He'd corrupted it, turned it into a risk-laden engine for investor hype. And if it crashed, if the predictions failed catastrophically, the blame would fall on the legacy code. Legacy code? Me. Not the board. Not Gregory. I opened my laptop, logged into the backup server I'd kept out of paranoia, and started comparing file histories line by line. I wasn't sure what I was looking for yet. Maybe just proof that I wasn't going crazy. Maybe something more. What I found chilled me. Multiple lines had been altered over the last 4 weeks, each change carefully positioned to create inflated output while burying the risk layer. And all of them had been pushed through by a new admin account, G. Shaw Override. I stared at the screen. He hadn't just taken my work. He was rigging it to explode. I clicked Download Full System Snapshot and encrypted the file with a password only Amelia would understand. Then I closed the lid and sat there, listening to the soft hum of the refrigerator. In that silence, something inside me shifted. Not rage, not revenge. Clarity. He thought I was a ghost. Maybe it was time I proved him wrong. 2 days later, my access to the internal engineering portal was revoked. No notice, no email. I found out when I tried to log in and was met with a gray screen that simply said, "Permission denied." I checked Slack. My name had vanished from every team channel. Even the random thread, where people posted memes and birthday wishes, vanished. Just like that. I walked into the office the next morning and found my desk moved to a corner beside the storage room. My nameplate was gone. Someone else was sitting where I used to sit. She looked up, startled, and said, "Oh, sorry. They said this was free." That same day, I noticed the shift in people. No one made eye contact anymore. Conversations trailed off when I walked by. Even Ben, my go-to guy for API troubleshooting, avoided me in the break room. Only Maya, one of the junior data analysts, dared to speak. She caught me by the elevators, her voice low. "You should stop poking around. Seriously." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She hesitated. "They're watching your access logs. You weren't supposed to see that volatility patch." Before I could press further, the elevator doors opened and she slipped inside, disappearing behind metal. By now, I was angry. Not the hot, raging kind. The cold, focused kind. The kind that makes you catalog every injustice like you're building a case file. That night, I sat in my home office and opened the full system snapshot I had downloaded. Line by line, I reviewed the code again. This time, not just for bugs, but for motive. And there it was. A sequence in the predictive module that took real-time market data and rerouted it through a weighting engine I didn't recognize. It diluted risk signals, amplifying green light recommendations for stocks with volatile patterns. To an average user or investor, it would look like the system was confident. But it wasn't. It was lying. Not only had they stolen my system, but now they were using it to create the illusion of certainty, to manipulate investor behavior for maximum short-term gain. It was algorithmic fraud dressed up in confidence intervals and slick graphs. I stared at the screen, pulse steady, jaw locked. Then quietly, I mirrored the entire source code into an encrypted vault I kept in the cloud, one no one at the company could access. I set it to private, linked to a decoy email under a pseudonym I created years ago for security testing. I wasn't going to let this go. The next morning, I started building something new. a better version of the system, one that didn't manipulate, didn't sell false confidence. One built on transparency and ethical triggers. I named it Truth Engine. It felt like breathing fresh air after years of drowning under silence. Midweek, while reading a thread on ethical AI development, I came across a post from a tech journalist named Claire Donnelly. She'd written a scathing piece on another firm that had been caught tweaking algorithms to favor sponsor results. I created an anonymous account and sent her one line of code from the predictive weighting function. No subject, no signature, just compare this to Opticore's real-time predictions. You'll see it. I didn't expect a reply. But the next evening, I got one. I've been waiting for something like this. It was brief, but enough. The next twist came fast. I was summoned to HR. Gregory was already there, expression smooth as marble. There have been concerns, he began, hands folded like he was giving a sermon. Access breaches, suspicious downloads. We're conducting an investigation into possible IP theft. I didn't flinch. You mean you're trying to silence anyone who knows what you've done? He gave a condescending smile. You really think you can fight this? I don't need to, I said quietly. Truth defends itself. That night, just as doubt began to creep in, just as the weight of isolation and risk began to settle, I got a message. Unknown sender. No subject. I remember you. You helped me debug a runtime issue in 21. They fired me after I questioned the market analytics. But I kept everything. I still have the build logs. Attached, a full snapshot of Opticore from 2 years ago. Unaltered. Proof. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen. Then, I opened a voice memo on my phone, scrolled to the top, and hit play. Amelia's voice filled the room. She was 4 then, her words slightly jumbled, but clear. Happy birthday, Daddy. I saved you the last cupcake. I know you're working, but I miss you. I closed my eyes and let it echo through me. Not guilt, not regret, resolve. On a quiet Monday morning, I slipped into the office before most arrived. I made my way to the server control terminal, still connected to the legacy backend I'd built. No one had removed my clearance for that part. Too old, too forgotten, too petty. I plugged in the encrypted drive and launched the silent command I'd embedded months ago. Diagnostic Protocol 0A1 backdoor. Within seconds, the script ran, cross-referencing every unauthorized code injection made over the last 3 months. The results didn't display visibly, but they initiated a feedback cascade that would trigger over time. Slow, precise, irreversible. By noon, Opticore's real-time market predictions began stalling. By the end of the day, client dashboards flashed red warnings. Data source delay, recalibrating models. The PR team issued a quick statement blaming third-party vendors. But by the next morning, investors noticed. The predictions weren't just delayed, they were wrong. And by the third morning, the entire new system, Gregory's showpiece, began collapsing. Portfolio simulations turned into chaos. Smart trades misfired. One hedge fund lost $18 million in 4 hours. Then came the message. A simple text from an encrypted number. I know what you did. You want to gamble? Fine, let's play. GS. I stared at the message for a long minute, thumb hovering over the screen. Then I deleted it. The damage wasn't total. Not yet. But enough. The system was hemorrhaging, and he knew it. 2 days later, I was reviewing headlines. Tech darling falters. Is Opticore too smart for its own good? when I received a LinkedIn connection request from David Lynn. That name hit harder than expected. We were lab partners in undergrad, both competing for the same fellowship we eventually shared. He had a sharp mind for pattern recognition and an uncanny memory. We hadn't spoken in over a decade. I clicked accept. A moment later, a message arrived. Been watching the headlines. You built something beautiful, Ethan. Sorry it got twisted. You're involved in the company? I typed. One of the early investors, silent board seat, been monitoring things for a while. Gregory's games didn't sit right with me. I stared at the screen. David Lynn, silent board member, had seen this unfold in real time. You're not alone in this, he added. Some of us have been waiting for a reason to act. That night, I took Mom to her appointment. While we waited in the pharmacy, she held my arm tighter than usual. They think they can erase you, she said quietly. But the ones who hold things together never need applause. They just keep the roof from falling. I smiled faintly. She added, sometimes silence is the highest form of revenge. But sometimes you have to raise your voice so others stop whispering. I didn't answer. But I knew which version of me she was talking to, the one ready to stop whispering. 2 evenings later, I received an email from Gregory's assistant, a dinner invitation. To clear the air, she wrote, strictly off the record. The address? A penthouse suite downtown. Discreet. Private. I knew it was a trap, or at least a stage. I went anyway. He greeted me like nothing had happened, like he hadn't tried to erase me from my own work, like he hadn't stolen a system and corrupted it to fuel his personal PR machine. We sat across from each other at a table too long for comfort, candlelight flickering between us. I respect your tenacity, he said, sipping wine. But this is a losing game, Ethan. The system failed because you sabotaged it. That's a criminal offense. But I'm willing to overlook that if we agree to let things fade away. From a drawer, he slid a thick envelope. I didn't touch it. This includes a generous severance, an NDA, and a consulting credit. You'll walk away clean. I leaned back. You always mistake silence for surrender. He paused, reading my face. What are you planning? I didn't answer. Instead, I tapped my wrist. A subtle flick. My smartwatch screen blinked. The room, our voices, everything. We were live, streaming, online, to an audience climbing by the second. His smile collapsed. You think this protects you? I think this reveals you. He stood abruptly, knocking over his chair. You arrogant little... I didn't flinch. I simply stood, nodded, and walked out. By the time I hit the sidewalk, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Journalists, engineers, former employees, strangers. When I opened the front door at home, Amelia ran toward me, arms flung wide. Daddy, you're home. You're not in trouble, right? You're safe? I knelt and hugged her tight. No, baby, I whispered. Not trouble. Just truth. The video from Gregory's penthouse dinner exploded across every platform before the candles had even melted. Within hours, the invisible engineer and the stolen code were trending on X, Reddit, and even LinkedIn. Platforms rarely united by outrage. Clips of Gregory's meltdown went viral, spliced next to graphs of the company's recent AI failures and screenshots of my original architecture blueprints, now public, thanks to a leak from someone inside. But it wasn't just the public who noticed. By noon the next day, a group of investors, 3 major venture funds, announced a freeze on further funding. Their joint statement read, We are appalled by the ethical misconduct and manipulation revealed in recent footage. Until a full independent audit is completed, we will be withdrawing financial support from the executive leadership of the company. Gregory was suspended within 24 hours. The board called it administrative leave pending investigation. But everyone knew it was a quiet fall from grace. And I didn't lift a finger. I sat in my living room, sipping lukewarm coffee, watching as the very system I'd once kept alive began to rot from within, on public display. A week later, I received a formal letter from the board requesting a technical review of OptiCore's back-end system, not to help them recover, to help them cover their asses. I ignored it. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went to Amelia's school. Parent-teacher night was a blur of hand-drawn posters, sugar-sticky fingers, and tiny chairs that made my knees ache. But none of it mattered. What mattered was the way Amelia beamed when she saw me walk through the door. Like I had just walked off a spaceship. Like I wasn't just her dad. I was her hero. Her teacher, Mrs. Langford, pulled me aside and said, "Amelia talks about you a lot. She says you build invisible things that keep people safe." I smiled. Maybe that was enough. When we got home that night, I found a new email waiting in my inbox. No subject line, no sender name, just one sentence. "It's not over. You've made enemies you don't even know exist." I stared at the screen, my pulse quiet. Then I clicked delete. 2 mornings later, a sleek black car pulled up in front of my house. A man stepped out in a tailored gray suit and knocked on my door with the precision of someone who didn't expect to be turned away. He introduced himself as Alexander Voss, Executive Director of ArcLight Systems, one of OptiCore's fiercest competitors. "I've followed your work for years," he said plainly. "We believe technology should be accountable, not weaponized." He offered me a position, Chief Technology and Ethics Officer. Full creative autonomy, no interference. Build what I wanted. Guardrails, transparency layers, open audit logs. He called it next-gen integrity infrastructure. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I asked to see their existing code base. He handed me a tablet. I skimmed. And then I saw it. A clean, modular system with plenty of room for moral governance. Raw, but honest. "We want to start with your blueprint," he said. "Build it right from the beginning." That night, I said yes. Within days, I stood before a crowd at ArcLight's headquarters, unveiling the project now named Code of Integrity. No market manipulation, no prediction rigging, just clean tech with ethical visibility at its core. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. The story had already told itself. A week later, I sat on the back porch with my mother, newspaper in her lap. The headline read, "Former Engineer Leads AI Ethics Revolution." She tapped the article gently. "Your father," she said, "was brilliant too. But he let other people take credit. It broke him." "I'm glad you didn't let that happen." I nodded, unsure what to say. The sun dipped low, painting the sky the color of amber code. That same evening, another twist surfaced. A report leaked that Gregory's rapid rise at the company had been quietly funded by a venture capitalist named Lennox Vale, a shadow figure known for turning clean tech into cash cows through aggressive, often unethical growth strategies. Vale had injected millions into OptiCore shortly before my removal from the core team. So it hadn't just been Gregory. He had backing, someone who wanted the system to be what it wasn't. And now, With Gregory gone, Vale had begun pulling strings elsewhere. But this time, I had eyes on everything. Then came the call. A government liaison, someone from the new AI Oversight Initiative, invited me to join their advisory board. The initiative was being fast-tracked after the Opticore scandal. Lawmakers wanted guardrails, technical and ethical. "We want someone who's seen both sides," she said. "Who's lived it?" They asked me to lead a task force, design a national audit protocol for predictive systems used in finance, health, even defense. I didn't say yes, not right away. That night, I walked into Amelia's room. She was asleep, curled under a blanket, clutching a plush robot toy I'd bought her after my first bonus, back when I thought hard work alone would be enough. I sat beside her and whispered, "What do you think, baby? Should Daddy help build rules that make the world fairer?" She stirred but didn't wake. I kissed her forehead and stood up, heart quieter than it had been in years. Then I returned to my desk and opened the reply box. "I'm in." It was nearly dusk when the knock came. 3 soft raps. Too polite to be hostile, too rehearsed to be casual. I opened the door to find Gregory standing there. No security, no entourage, just a man stripped of his armor. He looked smaller. Not physically. He still wore the same custom-tailored suits, but in presence. The eyes that once gleamed with smug certainty now flickered with something more dangerous, calculation laced with fear. "May I come in?" he asked. I hesitated, then stepped aside. We sat across from each other in the kitchen, Amelia's school drawings pinned to the fridge between magnets shaped like stars. He didn't look at them. His hands were clasped too tightly. "I'm not here to apologize," he began, voice low. "That would insult both of us." I said nothing. "But I do need to tell you something, and you need to listen." He slid a flash drive across the table. "What's this?" "Proof that your system, your original system, was lifted, rebuilt, and integrated into a data targeting module being tested by a military-adjacent think tank. Not by me, by the people behind me." I stared at him. "What people?" He leaned in. "The ones who funded my rise, the ones who needed predictive modeling not just for markets, but for behavioral influence, civil unrest forecasting, election interference, digital coercion. Your architecture, Ethan. They re-engineered it, turned it into a weapon." The air in the kitchen thickened. "You're saying they're using my work to predict and manipulate human behavior at scale?" He nodded. "And they're doing it without ethics, without oversight, because they believe the best AI is the one that learns how to win, not how to be fair." I felt the blood drain from my face. He added, "You're making too much noise. You're forcing transparency into systems designed to be invisible. That makes you a problem." I stood slowly, pulse steady. "You're afraid." "I'm smart," he countered. "I know when a storm is coming, and I'd rather survive it than pretend I can stop it." I walked him to the door. "I don't care what you'd rather. I care about fixing what we let happen." He turned back one last time. "Just remember, when you pull the curtain back, sometimes what's behind it pulls back harder." After he left, I sat in Amelia's room, watching her sleep. She mumbled in her dreams, something about robots and cupcakes. I brushed her hair back gently and whispered, "I built something good, didn't I, baby? Even if they twisted it." Then I held her a little longer, wondering if what I was about to do would protect her, or paint a target on her future. Because the truth wasn't just dangerous anymore, it was weaponized. By morning, the decision was made. I called the few people I trusted most, former engineers, data scientists, ethics analysts, the ones who'd been silenced, fired, or pushed aside because they asked the wrong questions. We met in a co-working basement with dead cameras and no Wi-Fi. By nightfall, we had drafted a report unlike any other, a comprehensive global assessment of predictive systems being misused across sectors: finance, defense, healthcare, education. We traced code signatures, cross-referenced APIs, backtracked unauthorized forks, and we included the origins: every stolen line, every corrupted function, every ethical bypass. I signed it anonymously, but the story spoke loud enough. We released it on every platform at once: encrypted mirrors, open source journals, whistleblower repositories. The title read, "The Cost of Knowing: How Predictive AI Became a Weapon." The ripple effect was immediate. Agencies opened inquiries. Nonprofits demanded reform. Citizens finally understood the systems quietly shaping their lives. That same week, I received an invitation from a group I'd only heard rumors about, the EthicsNet Alliance, a coalition of global AI researchers and digital rights advocates. They'd been watching me since the Gregory video. Now, they wanted me to lead their North American chapter, a full-time mission to unite engineers who believed in ethical coding and restore accountability to a system that had lost its soul. I didn't say yes right away. I needed quiet first. That evening, I sat on the porch with my mother. She didn't say much, just passed me her phone to show a new article. The headline read, "The Man Who Refused to Be Invisible." She smiled. "You never were." As I walked back into the house, my phone vibrated. A new message. This one with a name I recognized. Alexander Voss, CEO of ArcLight. It read, "This time, don't call it petty work. We know exactly what it's worth." The auditorium was quiet, filled with rows of suited executives, engineers, and students with wide eyes and notebooks clutched tight. Somewhere behind the curtains, I could hear the host rehearsing my bio. Cleaned, polished, accurate this time. Amelia stood beside me backstage, holding the small crystal plaque with both hands. Her dress was pale blue, her shoes a little scuffed from the playground, and her smile. Her smile carried me through the noise. "They said I could give it to you," she whispered. "They asked if I wanted to." I knelt beside her. "You sure?" She nodded. "You earned it." When they called my name, Ethan Miller, recipient of the Global Ethics and Technology Award, it wasn't the applause that caught me off guard. It was the silence that followed. The room listened, really listened. Amelia walked up ahead of me, tiny feet echoing softly on the wooden floor, and handed me the award with both hands. I bent low, kissed her forehead, then stepped to the mic. "My daughter once called me invisible," I began. She wasn't wrong. For years, I worked in the shadows, believing that integrity was its own reward, that doing the right thing didn't need a spotlight. I paused, letting that land. But shadows have limits. And sometimes the systems we build in silence get hijacked by voices that are louder but not wiser. This award isn't just for me. It's for everyone who's ever had their work stolen, their warnings ignored, their name erased. The applause came then. Slow, deliberate, meaningful. After the ceremony, a professor from Stanford approached me. "We've added your model, Truth Engine, to our ethics curriculum," she said. "Your code is now part of how we teach students, not just to build tech, but to question it." I smiled, something in me quietly settling. Weeks passed, My schedule filled with panels, workshops, interviews I never imagined I'd accept. Still, I made sure Amelia got to school on time. Every morning, same seat, same routine. One morning, she asked me, "Do I have to be famous like you?" "No," I said, looking straight ahead at the road. "You don't have to be famous. You just have to be right. But people like loud things." I smiled. "Then be quiet, but true. Loud fades. Right lasts." At a tech symposium in Boston, during a Q&A, someone in the back asked about Gregory Shaw. I hadn't said his name in public since the collapse, so I told the truth. He lost more than a title. He lost trust, but he's still trying to rebuild. That counts. They didn't expect that answer. Later that month, I received an email with a link to a video from a nonprofit tech school in Oregon. It showed Gregory, older now, hair grayer, standing in front of a whiteboard, explaining data ethics to a room full of teenage coders. "I used to think speed mattered more than truth," he said on camera. "Now I teach the opposite. I close the laptop, not with triumph, but with a quiet sense of balance. Not everyone deserves redemption, but some seek it anyway." I stayed involved with the EthicsNet Alliance, building connections between startups and transparency initiatives. Truth Engine was adopted by 5 universities and piloted in 3 government agencies. We weren't changing the world overnight, but we were making it harder for the wrong people to operate unseen. Then came the invitation. A new facility, a joint venture between universities, tech firms, and watchdog groups, a physical hub for AI governance and open source research. They wanted me at the groundbreaking ceremony. When I arrived, they handed me a hard hat and led me to the corner of the construction site where the first ceremonial bricks were to be laid. There it was. A single, unassuming brick with my name etched into the surface. Ethan Miller, Architect of Integrity. I stared at it for a long time, not because I wanted recognition, because I remembered the nights I worked unseen, the smirks, the stolen slides, the meetings I wasn't invited to, the fear of pushing back, the weight of silence, the moment I thought none of it would matter. And yet, here it was, concrete, permanent. As I stepped forward and placed the brick in its cradle of wet mortar, someone asked me if I had a quote for the press. I looked at the brick, then at the building that would rise from it. "They mocked the brick," I said quietly, "but it held the building.